All right, let's see. OpenShift. So yeah, so that's my login, and already was testing it to make sure that it was working, and OpenShift. So you should over the weekend or by next week perhaps create an account in OpenShift. Okay, and it will ask you to install a couple of tools. One of the things that it will ask you to install is the actually let me create an application for you, and then you'll see. All right, so let's create an application. Once you create the account, the first thing they'll ask you says, do you want to create a new application? And you say, yes, I want to create a new application. And over here, you can choose what sort of application you want, right? Certainly, you can host all sorts of Java applications. You can choose the server that you want, JBoss, PHP, Python, Ruby. There's all sorts of applications you can host, okay? We're going to choose NodeJS, right? We're going to select NodeJS. And it's going to ask you for a domain, right? And that domain, what you might want to choose is CS 4550, or maybe your NEU user ID or something, all right? So that it's unique to you, okay? Here I chose CS 4550, spring 2015, okay? And then here you can name your application. This has to be unique. It'll check to see if anyone else has chosen that domain, right? And it'll complain if you try and choose a name for your domain that is already taken. So perhaps if you use your NEU ID, that will make it unique enough that you won't be colliding against each other. Don't all choose CS 4550, right? Because then everybody's going to have the same domain, and that won't work. So I'm gonna here. Remember, we were working on our developer application on Tuesday, right? Where we were looking for developers and applications, and whatnot. So let's call this developers. Or actually, that's like an online IDE. So let me call it IDE. And then you say create application. This is going to take about a minute. So let's wait on that. Meanwhile, one of the things that one of the things that you might need to install on Windows, especially if you're using Windows, you might need to install Git. So install Git. That's right, installing Git. And on a Mac, newer Macs already have Git installed. Okay, so you don't need to do anything there. On Windows, there's a couple of executables that you can download, right? So if you search for install Git, it'll bring you here, and you can one of the links will allow you to download the Git client, right? So that you have it locally installed. I have it installed, right? And then when you install it, Git.exe is available, right? And you can run it from the command line. Okay, all right. So yeah, so you should install Git. And if it asks you if you want to install the command line tool, say yes, I want the command line tool, so you can run it from the command line. All right, all right, it's done. All right, so it created the application for us, right? It created the application, and over here it's giving us some hints on how to copy it down locally to our machine, right? So that we can work on it offline on our machine. Okay. So it says you're gonna use Git to clone your application. This is your application, right? That's the remote repository, which you can copy. I'll copy that. And locally on my command line, I would go where I want my application to live, right, on the local file system. So say I go to my local user account, right, user directory, and I paste that command. Oops, copy. If I paste it, notice that it says git clone and then some long URL. Okay, that URL is the repository. If I click on that, it's going to create. Notice that over here, it's going to create a directory called IDE. You see that IDE? right? Notice I don't have an IDE directory. If I say enter, it's gonna ask the authenticity can't be assigned. So yes, fine. I was going to start copying down everything. I'm going to do an ls, and you'll notice that now I do have an IDE directory. You see that? Right? This is what's deployed remotely. Those are the files that are deployed remotely. If I go into the IDE, notice that there is a server.js, right? That is the Node application that is running currently, right, remotely on that machine. What else is there? There's an index.html. That index.html, right? If I go and continue to the application overview, notice that this is the application, right? And the URL is the name that we chose, IDE dash, and then my domain, right, which was CS4550 SP 2015. See that, right? If I click on that URL, it goes to its index page, which happens to be this index page over here. It happens to be that exact index page, and this is a standard, hard-coded index page, which we can edit, right? We can open it up with locally with our favorite text editor. We can open the website. Where is it? It's in Jose, and it's under IDE. There it is. I'm going to open that. And that's the directory, right? That's the exact directory structure that we have. That's the index page. That's the index page that is currently, that's the index page that is currently deployed, right? It's this page that we're looking at here. So welcome to Node.js application, right? If I search for that, yes.
I just created an application and it says I need SSH.
Oh, yes. Right. So let me go back. All right. So where is it? Is it in settings? Where is it? Settings. Okay. If you go to settings to the application and you say learn more about SSH keys, right? One of the things that it'll ask you to do is that you'll need to install a client tool. Okay, client tools. So again, let's go back. Once you create your application, right, and you go to settings, one of the things is that you will need a key. I think yours should be blank for now. You don't have a key, do you? You don't, right? Yeah. So you'll need to go and learn how to create an SSH key. You go here, and you'll need a tool that is a part of the part of this free service. You'll need to install what is called the RHC tool. Okay, and the way to install that key that they're asking for you is to run RHC setup. Okay, to install RHC, it'll say click tools that you need to install, and says how to do it for Windows, for Mac, for depending your operating system. So on Windows, you'll need to first install Ruby, Git, which you probably already have, and then RHC. So follow these instructions, right, to install all these things. All right. So again, how to get there? From the settings of your application, learn about SSH, go into the clients tool, go to your operating system, right, and follow the instructions, right? It'll install the tool. Once you have the tool installed, you can run RHC setup. It'll ask you to log in with the account that that you created your account in OpenShift, and it'll ask you, do you want me to upload an SSH key? And you say yes, upload an SSH key, right? And then it'll appear here. It'll appear right here. Okay? Right? That makes sense? Right? All right. So the application. So the application is this right now. This index page, which I have it right here. This is the index page. There it is. If I search for this in my index page, if I copy and then search here, There it is. Welcome to Node.js, blah, blah, blah. I can modify it. I can change it. Okay. I can then push it back into upload it to the server to make the changes permanent. I can type git status to see if anything has changed, and it says yes, index.html has been modified. Right? I can commit my changes once I'm happy with my changes. I can commit my changes and say yes, that those changes are good. Testing index changes. I commit it, and then I push it. Right. So what this is going to do is going to stop the server. If I try to hit my application while it's loading, it's going to say that it's unavailable. Right, because it stops the server, it copies the file, and then it restarts the server. Okay. So this will take a little bit. All right, so it's copying, restarting all the services. The first time it takes a little longer, but once we've done it a couple of times, it'll get faster. So this is the very first time. So notice that it says starting the application IDE again. There it is, done. If I go back and refresh, notice that my changes are there. Okay? Everybody okay? Everybody still with me? Right? So what I have here, this directory structure is exactly what's installed remotely on that machine. So here's my server.js that they created. This is their boilerplate JavaScript server. It's quite involved. It's quite involved. I don't care for what they did. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a copy. I'm going to make a copy just to keep it around. And then I'm just going to blow away their version. Right? I'm going to blow away their version. I'm going to start brand new like we did on Tuesday. Right? Remember Tuesday? We did this on Tuesday, right? So let's how do we do it on Tuesday? We went to Express, right? We went to Express, and we started from scratch, a very, very trivial application. Right? I'm going to copy that. I know this is only going to work locally, right? Because this is listening at port 3000, right? And it's also listening at the local IP address, localhost, right? This will not work remotely. This will only work locally on my machine. Let me see if it actually works locally. Let's verify that. Node server. No, that didn't work. And because I don't have any of the modules, let's see, ls node modules, right? There's nothing there. Okay. So I would need to install it. What I could do is just say npm, right? Npm install Express. Yes, that's one of the things that I should do to install Express locally, right? But I have to be mindful that this server that I'm creating has to work both locally and remotely. Okay, remotely, it already has all these packages installed. Right, it already has all these packages installed. If I install it now, Git is going to say, "Oh, you got a new directory, the Express directory, the new libraries," and it's going to actually try and push all these libraries over there, right? But it already has all these libraries, so it makes no sense, for Git to have replicated the libraries here and the libraries over there. It makes no sense, right? So before I do that, I'm going to tell Git to ignore anything that is inside of Node modules. Ignore it. Okay, I am going to install it locally, right? But I don't want to push this into my repository. Okay, it's the same thing if you're deploying something in Java, right? And you have a whole bunch of jar files, right? You want to put in source code. You want to put what? You want to put the source, right? You don't want to put libraries and compiled code in the source code, right? Correct? Libraries like jar files and stuff like that, you install so that your particular environment is works fine, right? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell Git to ignore certain files. Okay. All right. So for that, I am going to need a file called .gitignore. Okay. How do you create files that start with a dot in Windows? Is there a cat? I don't have cat.
Not at the end of the file name.
Huh?
I think you can do a trick by adding another period at the end of the file name.
File? Okay, let's see. Let me see. Let me go C users Jose, and it's the IDE. I want to create a file here. Let me see if it'll let me. Oh no, not journal. New text file. Dot get ignore. Okay. And I want to now remove the .txt. Will let me do that? No, it won't let me. Can I rename it here? Let me see. ls. Okay. Move .get text to .get without the text. Okay, that worked, right? Okay, there it is. .get ignore. There it is. We faked it. Okay, so let's open up that file. Let me reload it here. Where is it? There it is. Get ignore. So whatever directories or files you list here, Git is just going to ignore. You know, so I'm saying, okay, fine. You know, whatever's under that directory, I'm just going to ignore. So I'm going to put here, I don't want it to look into the node modules. Whatever's in there, I want it to ignore. There it is. I'm going to save that. And now that it's going to ignore anything under there, now I'm going to install my local Express, right? My local Express. Actually, all the packages that I need, including Express, are listed under packages, package.json. Let's look at it. Let's look at the content. Let's open it up. It says, right, this is the same thing like a meta-inf or manifest when you're deploying Java classes or things like that. It says all the dependencies. This is the equivalent. Anybody play around with Maven in Java? Maven? Okay, a couple of you. This is the equivalent of a POM file, right? The POM.xml that lists all the dependencies, saying my project depends on these other things, and you can then this can be then used to resolve all those dependencies. Like for instance, it says that my project depends on Express, right? So if I tell npm to install, just like that, just npm install, as opposed to telling exactly what I want to install. If I don't tell it what to install, it's going to say, oh, okay, I'll read your package.json. I'll look at the things that you depend on, right? And I'll install the things that you depend on, right? Or I can be very specific and say, you know, install Express. I could do that. Okay. In this case, package, we did that already last week with on Tuesday. Is that what we did last week? I'm sorry, on Tuesday when we installed Express, we did npm install Express. Isn't that what we did on Tuesday? All right. So this time I'm going to do it without like that, right? It's going to look up the dependencies in package.json, and it'll notice that says that it depends on Express. Okay. So it will download Express 344 and it'll install it locally. Right, so let's say npm install. It opens up that package.json. It looks at all the dependencies and it downloads the dependencies and installs it in Node. And if we do an ls on Node modules, notice that Express is installed there. It wasn't installed earlier, if you remember, right? Express was not there, but now it is. Okay, now that Express is running locally, now we can do node server, and it should work. Okay, now it's working. Remember, it was failing because it didn't find Express, but now it does have Express. All right, so now it's running locally, and we can test to see if indeed this is working. Localhost, and it's listening at 3,000. And yes, there's hello world, right? Our hello world, because that's what our server does, right? It just says hello world. This is where we were on Tuesday, right? This is where we were on Tuesday, but we want this to work both locally and we want this to work remotely. Yes, right? So we need to make this a little smarter, so that it'll work on both places. If I go back to the server that they had, if you look at the server that they had, we'll notice that there are a couple of things here that we do need. Okay, this is an environmental variable that the environment where this is running, which is OpenShift, passes me or sets this environment variable so that I can know what the IP address is, right? And I can know what support that I should use. You see that? Okay. So what I could do, I could go to my server, my local server. I could say use for a port, use either the IP address. Sorry, the IP address. For the IP address, use the IP address that the environment is giving you. But if it's not there, if it's null, right, or empty, or it's not, it's not or undefined, then use 3000 instead. That's what the or means, right? Okay, meaning so this will work if it's running remotely, right? It's running when it's deployed, but locally this will fail, right? This will fail. It's undefined. So instead, it'll take the 3000. Make sense, right? For the port, we're going to do something similar. Here's the port. This is the environment variable that is only defined when it runs remotely. Right? So I'm going to say port. Well, this environment variable is only defined when it's running remotely. Locally, this will not be defined and it will fail. Okay. And what I'll do is that instead of using that IP address, I'll use localhost, right? Which the IP address is 127.0.0.1. Yes. Sorry?
I think you have to switch that.
What do you mean? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Very good. I did that on purpose. There we go. Thank you. Yep. And these backwards. All right. Now that these are variables, right, I can now tell the listen method to say, okay, use the port, right? Use the port and use the IP address. Okay, so listen can take as argument the port, and if you don't give it the IP address, it'll assume localhost, right? But over here, I'm explicitly telling you the IP address because it can be either or, right? It could be one or the other. Everybody good? Is everybody okay? All right, so I'm going to save this. My remote machine is still this, right? It's still giving me this index page. But I'm about to blow this away, right? Because my server, I blew away the server that they gave me, and I replaced it with my own. Yes? With my own code. Hopefully, it'll do this. It'll be the same as my local server. Yes? Okay? What we want is that the local environment replicates the remote environment so that we can do development in our local environment. Once we're happy, we push it and we publish it. Okay? All right. So let's see. Let's look at my changes. We can say git status to see what has changed. It says server.js has changed. You have two new files. You have the .gitignore, that's a new file, and also a copy of the server. Okay. Notice that it did not find the files under node modules. All these files, it's ignoring them. Right? If I did not have that .gitignore, it would have said, oh, and you have all this new directory Express that has all these other cool things under there. Express has a whole bunch of stuff under there, right? I don't want any of that because Express is already installed in the remote machine. Make sense? Everybody okay? All right. All right. Okay, so I'm going to say git add dot. That means, all those things you told me that were new files, right? That .gitignore plus that copy. Add those new files. So at git add dot. So it found those. I'm going to do git status again. It says, okay, I know about these new files, right? And also you renamed server to server copy.js and you modified server.js. Everybody good? I'm going to commit my changes and say new server version. commit, and then I'm going to push. Again, this is going to take a little bit. My remote machine will be unavailable for a couple of seconds. Right, it's temporarily unavailable while it reinstalls everything. Now it should go just a little bit faster than earlier, only because yeah, notice that it was much quicker than before, right? So okay, so that's my remote machine, and if I refresh, notice that it says "Hello World," right? Exactly like my local machine. Everybody good? Right, now my local and my remote machine. Actually, my local machine, if I refresh, oh yeah, okay, it's there. Wait, was okay? No, it shouldn't have worked, right? Right, timed out because I stopped my local machine, right? I can always restart my local machine, and this should work. Yes. Okay. Okay. Everybody still with me? Right. So basically, what we're going to do is that we're going to develop locally, right? Test locally. Once we're happy with what we have locally, we're going to push to the remote machine. Everybody okay? To go over what we did on Tuesday, let's try and replicate what we had on Tuesday, right? So we can review that, right? And try to get that working on the remote machine. Yes? Right? Okay, let's do that. Let's see. What do we need? Let's see. We need, we don't need this anymore, right? That was just for us just testing this out. What do we need? We need a public directory. So let's create a public directory. Let's create a public directory. Add public directory, public. And in there, we're going to add a file under there, and we're going to say index.html. And in here, we're going to say index. And we're just going to try it out, h1 hello from index.html. Whatever. Okay. I'm going to push this to the remote server and see if it works. Actually, let me try to see if this works locally. Locally still doesn't work because it's still running. I need to restart the server. Let's restart the server. I do this. Notice that okay, because we changed the server, right? We removed that get slash, right? We removed that get slash. We don't need this anymore. We don't need this anymore. That's an old index. That's a package, and the server will remove that get. Oh, and it's not serving the files in my public directory, right? What do we have to do so it serves files in the public directory? We need something else, right? We need to. There's an additional line of code that we need to add so that it serves those static files. Let's go back to our Express. Let's search for public. There it is. We need to add this line and tell the server to start serving content from the static content that is inside of the public directory. Okay, let's see if it works locally. I'm going to stop my server. I'm going to restart my server. This is my local server. I'm going to refresh my local server, and there it is. It works locally, right? Hello from index. Remotely, we still have the old server code, right? Right. So we need to commit our changes and push it to the remote server so that we're synchronized. Okay, let's do that real quick. I'm going to do git status to see what has changed. And it says, okay, you modified your server and you added a public directory, right? Plus all the files under the public directory. I'm going to say git add so that everything under the public directory now has been added. If I do a git status again, it'll say, oh, okay. Now I file under the public directory. Okay, I'm going to commit my changes. Commit added index.xml. Okay, and I'm going to push my changes. So basically, that's my workflow, right? I make changes, I test locally, right? I then add all my changes to Git. I commit my changes, and then I push. I make changes, I test locally, I add my changes, I commit, and then I push. Right? That's the workflow. Right? There's a pattern there. Okay, so let's try it now. So locally we have hello. Remotely, let's reload. Oh, say, okay, so that's the same thing, right? It says hello from index and hello from index from both machines, locally and remote. But it's still with me? All right. So let's add a couple other things. We want to add, for instance, you know, all the other stuff, right? We want to add, you know, Bootstrap and all that other static content. Let's do that just like we did on Tuesday. Let's review a little bit of that. Let's see. I think I have it in download. In downloads, I have Bootstrap somewhere here. Bootstrap, there it is. And I have a couple file directories here. I'm going to copy those, and I'm going to paste them in the public. I'm going to just paste them here. There they are. What else do we need? Let's add Angular, and we have there's Angular and there's route. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to put them in the JavaScript file. I'm going to now do jQuery. jQuery. We're going to have it under here. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it here. And I guess jQuery UI. Why not? jQuery UI is here, and I'm going to paste it here. There we go. All right, I think we have everything. Let me add all that static content. I'm going to say git status. It says, okay, I know about, you know, there's all these 3 directories that are brand new that are not in your Git repository. Okay, all right, I'm going to add them. Git add dot. Okay, and now it knows about all those files. If I do a git status again, it says all these are new files. Okay, so I've added them. Now I'm going to commit my changes. Commit dash am. I'll say added bootstrap, comma jQuery and Angular. Okay. I don't have to push every single time. Right? I can commit. You know, make a little change, commit. Right? Make some other changes, commit again. Make changes, commit. Make changes, commit, and then I can push the entire thing, all my commits. Right? So I don't have to push right away. Let me keep coding. Let's see. What else do I need to do? In my index page, I'm gonna declare this to be an Angular. Oh, actually, I need to link all my libraries into my index page. I'm gonna bring in Bootstrap. So href, and I have. Oh, wait a minute. I need to update this so I can see it. Right? Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah. So we're gonna CSS, Bootstrap. There it is. Style sheet. Style sheet. Okay, I'm going to do script source. I'm going to bring JavaScript and jQuery. There it is. And then I'm going to do Bootstrap. There it is. And I'm going to bring now Angular. There it is. I'm going to bring routing. Angular route. Okay, what else? What else should we bring? Oh, my application, my local application, right? My client application. Copy. And I'll put it under app.js, which doesn't exist. Let me create it. Let me create app.js. This is my client application, right? That's going to talk to my server application, right? Right. This is my Angular application. So I'm going to say add JS, JavaScript, which is going to be app.js. Okay. So in here, we're going to say var my application is going to be something like, I don't know, Angular dot module, and then I'll call this my IDE application, and I'm not going to depend on any other module, and I'm going to create a controller called IDE controller, which is going to have a function that is going to take a scope, and it's going to say hello. I'm going to say scope dot hello, hello from IDE controller. Right? And in my index, I'm going to declare this to be my application, right? ng app. It's going to be equal to what do I call the application? What do I call it? IDE app. IDE app. Am I going too fast? Should I slow down a little bit? Is everybody still with me? Anybody? Did I lose anybody? Please let me know. All right, we can go over this. ID app, okay? And this is what we did on well, actually, we've been doing this for a couple of weeks, right? All right, so this should be a review. We're just making sure that we can run this remotely, okay? All right. We're gonna have div, class, container, and this is gonna be my controller, ng controller, and it's gonna be IDE controller, right? And this is where my, oops, it's going to say hello. Okay, so let's test this locally. Let's see if it works locally. So node server. Let's see if it works. So this is my remote machine. This is my local machine. I'm going to refresh. All right, hello from IDE controllers. Okay, so we have a boilerplate, Angular application. Let's see if we can get this working remotely, right? Let me go back. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to say, again, get status. This is the first thing I do. All right. Notice that there's a pattern. I ask for the status to see and to look at my changes. Okay. You modify index, and you added app.js. Okay. I can look at my different. I can say git diff. Right. And it will show me all my differences. It says, okay, my index page, I added this link, these 5 scripts, right? I removed my hello, and I added this body ng app IDE app and the controller. See the difference? It says once I'm happy with those changes, I'm gonna there's something new here, right? If I know there's something new, I can say git add. If there's nothing new, if I know there are no new files, I don't need to do git add dot. Okay? If I know there's no new files, but it doesn't hurt. I'm going to say git add dot. I'm going to do git status again, just to, again, keep track. Okay, so I modified index, and there's a new file, app.js. I'm going to commit my changes. Added a simple Angular app. Okay. All right, so notice that I have 2 commits, right? I have 2 commits that I have not pushed so far. Let me push now. Now I'm going to push both commits. I'm just going to say push. It'll push all the commits, right? The one before was adding all those new static files. This plus the new commit created a very simple app, Angular app. I'm going to push that. Okay, it pushes everything. Okay, it restarts, rebuilds. Activating, blah, 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 starting the IDE application. Okay, now I'm going to go to my remote machine, and I'm going to refresh, and it works exactly the same. Okay, it works exactly the same. Very good. Okay. All right, let's keep working. What do we do here? So let's remove that hello. I don't really want to say hello. In server, well, here, I usually like to put my files in the order from, on the left-hand side, the things that are closest to the user, and then on the right-hand side, towards the right-hand side, the things that are farthest from the user, which is the server, right? So I can follow the flow of data, right? Index is controlled by the app, which then talks to the server, right? Kind of that flow of the data, right? Okay, let's do something. Let's see. What do we do on Tuesday? Let's see. On Tuesday, we declared an array of developers, right? Developer. And in here we had something like first name. Let's replicate what we had on Tuesday, but let's make sure that we can get this working on the server, right? So here we had Alice. We had who else we have? We have last name. We had Wonderland. Comma, and we had a couple of these, and this was Bob, this was Charlie, and this was Dan, and this was Aykroyd, this was Garcia, this was Marley. Right? And then what do we do? Let's see. We said we created a little web service. We created a little web service that said, app, if you get a GET request that looks like REST slash developer, return or respond with the JSON of developer. Notice that the URL, we can look at the URL. This is a little bit different than what we did on Tuesday, right? On Tuesday, we mapped it to just developer, right? Remember that's what we did on Tuesday? Here, I am prefixing it with /rest, okay? This kind of creates kind of like a namespace. It says, you know, anything under REST, right, is part of some RESTful API, right? So that if I wanna, if I put it like this, right, this precludes me from using that URL. But if I put it under something that under here, this liberates the namespace developer for me to do something else, right? So I'm putting it under another URL, like a directory, saying that everything under here, right, is meant to be accessed through some API, right, through some URL that is going to respond with JSON data. Okay. Some people like to use REST as the prefix. Some other like to use API as a prefix, meaning everything that follows, right, is meant to be accessed through, you know, programmatically. Everything under here is meant to be accessed programmatically. It's not meant to be consumed by humans, right? It's meant to be consumed by other programs. Okay, make sense? All right. All right. So let's try this locally. Node server. So locally, if I say /rest/developer, right, it didn't work. Why not? Oh, is it API? Is that what I did? Thank you. API. There it is. So it's working, right? It's very much like it was working on Tuesday. All right. So that's working. And another thing that we had on Tuesday was the ability of providing an argument for like an index, right? Index. And for that, we parse that index from the parameters, from the request params, right? Params.index, param.index. Okay. Right? Let's see if that works. Let's stop the server. Let's restart. Now it allows us to not only retrieve all the developers, but instead we can retrieve an individual developer. So if I say I want one, that doesn't work. What? Developer/index req request.params. That again. There it is. Okay, I was missing an S. That's why I don't like to use plurals. Like everything singular. All right, so that's working. Let's try and get that working on the server. Let's try and get. So let me see. If you look at the changes, git status, we modify the server and we modify index. Let's notice that there are no new files, so I don't need to do a git add. There are no new files. I just only modify. So let me commit my changes. Added web service endpoints for entity developer. Endpoints. Usually they have good names like find all and find by ID, right? Okay. All right, committed that, and then I'm going to push it. Git push. All right, let's see. Stopping. And now I'm going to try it locally. All right, locally we tried it already. Let's try it remotely now if it works. Come on. Okay, let's see. So remotely, So that one doesn't work anymore, right? Because we removed that. So we're going to say, let's see, API/developer, the developer. There it is. It's working, right? And you can access it too, right? Because this is a public URL, right? I can email you this URL to you, right? And you can use my service, correct? Just like we were able to use, my films API, right, to download information about IMDb, right? That was a public URL, right? And it had queries, and you can parameterize your query. Now we have our own, right? We have our own service, and we can provide all sorts of cool services to anybody that asks for them, right? There is. I get all of these, and I can ask also for an individual one, right? Too. That's Charlie. So that's working. Everybody okay? Everybody still with me? All right. Let's make the other couple of changes. Let's make a couple more. We want to be able to delete. I would like to be able to delete. So we're going to say app.delete, and we're going to receive developer plus the index of the developer that we want to remove. When we do receive this, we want to take the original developer, right? Splice the index, right? So this is request dot params dot index, and I just want to splice just one of them, and then respond with the remaining developers. Yes, right. But that doesn't work unless we do it programmatically, right? Because we can't test that from just our browser. To do that, we're going to need some way of sending this programmatically, right? Doing HTTP, from Angular, right? HTTP.delete, right? Send the delete request from Angular. So let's do that. Let's see if we can hit any of these, right? Any of these from our local client here, right? So what do we want to do? We want to let's try to get all the developers from here, right? How do we do that? We use the HTTP service, right? This is pretty much what we did on Tuesday, right? And we say get, and now the URL is API/developer, and we're going to say, and this is going to say success. It's going to call us, and it's going to send the response, and we're going to send the response over to the UI to be rendered. Developers equal response. Response. Okay. I'm sending that to the UI. The UI is going to render it. Oops, what happened? What did I do? Oh. Semicolon. The UI is going to render it, right? It could render it as simple as just displaying it, right? So it would be developers. Plus, or we can iterate, right? We can iterate instead. Well, let's try. Let's see if it works, right? So node server, right? And locally, if we go to the index page, there it is. So our index page can access data, right, from the server and retrieve it. Yes, right? And hopefully this also works remotely if we push it. If we push it, let's render it as a table. So we say table class table striped, and we say t body, and this is tr ng repeat developer in developers, and here we're going to do table data. We're going to display the developer dot first name, and then last name. Right? Let's try that locally. It's working. Notice that I didn't have to refresh the server, right? I didn't have to restart the server because I was changing static content, right? None of this is being compiled or being executed on the server. And then just to just to make sure that I can send, delete commands. I'm going to put a button here, right? I'm kind of repeating myself what we did on Tuesday, but it's good. It allows us to refresh. We'll add a couple more things today. Let's see, button. This is class button danger, and the span class is let's see. Let's go for Bootstrap. Bootstrap. I never remember what the glyphicons are, and I want to do a delete. Just remove this glyphicon. I'll paste that, and that's the delete. And I'm also going to push this to the right, so it's flush to the right-hand side. All right, so locally, right, it looks like that. Right, locally it looks like that. If I click on this, it's always a good thing that every time you do something, like add a new feature, right, that is complete, right, you commit. Right, I'm a sucker for very often commits. Right, I make a little change, I commit. I make a little change, commit. So let's look at so far what we have so far. Git status. I guess I did too many things actually. Git diff public index. Let's see, what do I do? Okay, so I added. So we're rendering the users, the developers in the UI, right? What else are we doing in app? Git diff public JS app. We're getting the developers from the UI, right? What else? What else do we do? Git diff from server. We created a delete endpoint. Yes, actually, we did way too many things. We should have committed every single piece as we went along, right? It's better to be very verbose, right? And submit each individual thing so that if you make a mistake, you can always back out, right, and go back to something to the previous state where everything was working fine. So I'm going to commit all these changes. I'm going to say let's see, added delete endpoint. Okay, what else did we do? Fetch developers from server, and then render developers in UI, and then added delete button. Way too many things, right? Each one of these should have been a separate commit. Okay, so we'll do that. I'm going to commit, and let's push. Let's see if we have what we have so far. Let's see. Let's push that. Okay. Yeah, while that's going, we can start creating a handler that will remove the developer or the index, right? We'll pass the index. It's still going. In my here, I can create an event handler. You say scope.remove is a function that is going to receive the index. Okay, that worked. Let's see the remote, if it works remotely. We're here. There it is. All right, so it's just fetching, just like it was fetching before, right? But notice, the thing that I wanted to point out that this is working. Notice what's happening here. Notice what's happening here. Let's look at the network, right? Okay, I'm gonna make this a little smaller. I'm gonna restart this. Notice what's happening here. It goes off and creates a get, which is going to download what? It's going to download my index page, right? There's my index page. You see that? Right? And then my index page references everybody else. Yes. So what does it reference? Bootstrap. So it downloads Bootstrap. There it is, right? then it references jQuery, so it downloads jQuery. See that? So it's copying everything from a remote machine, right? Copying it onto my local machine, correct? Before, when we were running it on the same machine, it was copying it from, my machine, copying over to my machine. Yes? And everything was running locally, right? And there were no security issues, right? Because the browser was accessing Node.js on the same machine, so there was no security issues. Over here, it's different, right? Right? All these files are being downloaded from where? From this machine. See that? And they're all being downloaded onto my laptop. Okay? And then once it downloads all the files, so these are all the static files, right? They're being developed. Then it goes off and it makes a request, right, for the developer. This is hitting the IDE, right? It's hitting the IDE. And how is it doing it? It's using this get, right? This get. Yes? Right? But wait a minute. Didn't we try this when we went off to my Films API and it didn't work? Remember it didn't work? We had to go and use get JSON instead. Remember that? We used the .json instead. Why was that? Why did we have to use JSON there but not here? Okay. What's happening is that where was my app.js was downloaded from where? My app.js, right? My app.js is the one that does the query, right? My app.js is the one that's going to go out and ask for the data, yes? Well, where was it downloaded from? It was downloaded from the domain ide.com, right? From that domain. And when it does the query for the asking for the developers, notice that it's the same domain, right? It's asking for the developers from the same domain where it was downloaded from. See that? The browser checks that the domains are the same. And it says, that's okay. It was downloaded from that domain, right? It has access to its own domain, right? If it wasn't downloaded from the same domain, it would have stopped me. It would have said, nope, you can't do that. You can't do cross-domain scripting. You can't have a JavaScript downloaded from one domain trying to ask for data from another domain. It would have stopped me. That's why my API Films wasn't working, and we had to use that JSON p hack. Okay? Yes? That makes sense? Right? But over here, because my JSON is being downloaded from one domain and it's going off and getting data from the same domain, the browser says it's fine. You can go back to your domain and ask for data. Okay, that's why this is working. All right. Otherwise, we would have had to use the JSON P. Right. Actually, if we try and go off and try to do this same thing, right, and we put here a URL with some other domain in front of this, it's going to stop me and say, nope, you can't do that. Okay. You're going to have to use JSON P instead, right? The hack. Everybody okay? All right, so be careful, right? And don't say, and don't start scratching your head. It says, why is it working here, but it's not working over there, right? You have to be careful. Which domain are you trying to access? Right? If it's your domain, then you have no security issues. All right, great. That's good. Let's keep going and deleting. So we're going to remove. We're going to say. To remove, we're going to say $HTTP dot delete, right? What's the URL that the server is waiting for? It's waiting for this API, this URL, right? Let me copy that. So the client should generate an IDE, something like that, a URL, something like this. So it's going to pass in the index. There it is. And it's going to respond with all the remaining developers, and I'm going to send it again to the developers in the UI so that they can be re-rendered. Right? So the server should be doing that. Let's try this locally. Let me try this locally. No, actually, let me remove copy. I don't need it. So let me try Node.js, the server. Oops, there it is. I'm going to try this locally. So locally, there's my local. I'm going to try it. I'm going to remove. All right, looks like it's working. Okay, so I'm done with that feature. I'm done with the feature. I'm going to commit it. Okay, that feature is working. Git status. Let's see. In the index. What did I do in the index? Git diff public index. Okay, so I added the remove event handler, right? And what did I do in the in here? What did I do here? Okay, so I added the event handler for remove, right? So let me commit that. Added remove event handler and connection to web service endpoint. Web service endpoint. Okay, I'm not gonna push it, right? I'm pretty sure this will work fine in the server. Let's keep going. What else are we gonna do locally? Let's see. We want a developer we want to delete. Well, I want to create a brand new one. Let's do that. Let's create a brand new one. So for that, I'm going to do post and say app.post, right? And it's the same URL. It's api.developer, and it's going to do function rec response, and the object is going to be where? In the body, right? All right. So here's the new developer. It's going to be in the request body, and then I'm going to push it. I'm going to say developer.push the new developer, right? And then I'm going to respond with all the developers. Okay, but remember that body doesn't. Yes. Oh, thank you. Host, thank you. I'm just checking if you're awake. Right. So yeah. Right. So this remember that body doesn't as it stands, Express doesn't know how to parse the body, so we need to install the new package, right? The parser, the body parser package. So let's do that. Let's copy from the documentation body parser, right? So we need those two things, right? We need all that. We're going to copy that. We're going to paste it in our server. Paste it right there. Okay. So we need to install the body parser and the Multer packages, right? So let's do that. We're going to do npm install body parser. Before I do that, I want to show you. I'm going to show you package JSON. There it is, right? Package JSON. You can describe who the author, right? How to get in contact with the author. Where you can clone where this repository lives, so you can clone it and keep working on it. What versions of Node we're using, what versions of npm we're using, and so on and so forth. Plus the dependencies. Notice that I'm going to start using two new dependencies, right? Body parser and Multer, right? Which I'm going to install locally, yes? But my remote machine, right, should also install those dependencies. My remote machine doesn't have those, right? And so how do I tell the remote server that it should also install these dependencies? The way we do that is is to edit these dependencies here, right? And edit this document. Now, editing this document is not recommended to edit it manually. Okay. Instead, okay, when we install locally our dependencies, when we say npm install body parser, that's what we did on Tuesday, right? We installed body parser. We want to save this fact, right, that we depend on this module. We're going to do save. So save is going to write into the package JSON this package over here is going to write the dependency here, so that anybody who needs to know what what things does my project depend on can always look into my package JSON, right? So I'm going to do save. So it's going to install body parser. Notice it's installing. Okay, it did. It worked. Now notice that it detected that this file has changed. NPM has written right into the package.json the fact that we now not only do we depend on Express, we also depend on body parser. If I say yes, it's going to reload the file. And there it is. It wrote the fact that we depend on body parser. Okay, right? And that's going to be useful. So when I push these changes to the server is going to open up this file. Right? I'm going to say, oh, I already have Express. I don't have body parser. I better install that. Okay. So the server knows to look at this and run npm install, right? Right, to make sure that it's synchronized with whatever we have. What else do we need? We need multer. So let's come here. We're going to say npm install multer and save this dependency. Remember, on Tuesday, we just did npm install multer, right? This time, we're going to say save. If I go back again and say yes, right? Notice that it added multer as a dependency. Okay. Let's see, git status. Let's see what we have so far. Git, I can say git diff, so I can look at all my differences. It says, okay, in package.json, we added these. Let's see, we added the dependency on body parser and multer. And whereas in server, we added the dependencies on body parser and multer, right? And we added a post web service, right? So let's commit that. Let's commit that. So git anything new? Git status. Any new files? No new files. Notice that those two new packages, right? Even though those are new files, they're being ignored. So we're not going to push them to the server. The server will install its own versions. Well, not it's the same versions because it's going to look at the package.json. It's going to install the same versions that we have, right? But there's no need for us to actually push the libraries. Okay. All right. So we're going to do git commit. There's no need to do any add because there are no new files. We're going to commit and so say am added dependencies with body parser and multer, and created post create web service endpoint to create new developers. Okay. All right, we're going to do git push. This time it's going to take a little longer, right? Because it has to deploy 2 new modules, right? So when we push, it's going to take just a smidge longer. Notice that it's going to open up package.json, and it should echo the fact, there it is. See, it's showing that it's deploying new things, right? It says, notice that it's running npm, and it's downloading whatever it needs to redeploy everything. Okay, there's body parser, right? The new body parser being installed, new multer being installed, and it will deploy. Restart. Okay, right? All right. So okay, we have that. I'm going to close package.json. How much longer I have till 4:30, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're going to create an input fields here to be able to invoke that post, right? So we're going to do in the t head, we're going to do t row, and we're going to do a th for the fields. So this is going to be input class form control, and I'm going to tie it with the controller through a model. I'm going to say that this is developer dot first name, and I'm just going to do this again for last name, and I'll put a button. I'm going to add a button here. I'm going to need a new th at the end where I'm going to put a button, and I'm going to paste it here, and this is going to say add. And it's going to pass the developer object. and this is going to be a green, not danger, but green, success. And instead of remove, it'll be plus, right? Plus. Let's try this locally, just to see if it renders. So node server. Let's try it locally. Where's locally? This is it locally, right? Okay, there it is. So we have that there. We then need to create the event handler add on the controller. Right, so we're going to say scope.add. It's a function that takes as argument a new developer. And we're going to just invoke the post. We're going to invoke the server and say, hey, create this new developer, and I'm passing you the developer data. And when you're done, if you are successful, then notify me in your response, which can the new developers in your response, and I'll send it to the UI to be rendered. Okay, everybody good? All right, let's try this. Let's see if it works. Refresh. Let's make it a little slower, a little smarter. And that didn't work. Let's see, why not? Console response is not defined. Response, oh, because I misspelled it. Okay, let's try this again. I didn't have to restart the server because I'm only changing the static content. All right, so let's try this again. Add. All right, looks like it's. Oh, notice that it did add. What happened there? Oh, because that query was still pending, right? Well, actually, no. It actually added it in the server, but when it responded, I didn't have it. The variable was mistyped, right? So it did add it, right? And what about delete? I can delete. I can add. So we're back in business, right? What else? All right. So I think we have enough to push, right? Let's see, git diff. We have we created a new form to be able to add, and we created the event handler to actually send it over to the server. So we're gonna do oh, what happened? Okay. Git. Oh, any new files? No new files. Okay, so git commit IAM added form to add new developer, comma, added event handler that sends new developer to server, or that posts, that not sends, that posts new developer. There we go. Okay, and let's see if this works remotely. Okay, this should go faster because there are no new packages to install. Okay. Let's see, it's preparing and deploying. It's restarting, and it should done. Okay, let's see remotely. So that's remotely. I'm going to refresh, and let's add. Let's say add. Okay, it's working. You know, just like it works locally. Very good. You just keep adding, and I can keep removing. All right. So it's working the way it's supposed to be. Finally, let's not edit, but let's see if we can add applications. Let's add applications. How's that? Right. Let's say that when I click on a particular when I click on a particular user, I display their applications. How's that? Right. Let's see. Let's go to the server and let's add some applications. Let's add some applications. So apps. Let's say apps. In the apps, we'll say that this developer worked on the following apps: Word. Worked on Word. Then they worked on PowerPoint, and they worked on Excel. So Excel. Okay, so it's an array of apps, and but Marley, he worked on. But clearly, Alice is a Windows developer, whereas Bob Marley, he's cooler, so he worked on some Mac applications. So he worked on Pages, worked on what else? I don't know their suit. Pages, Numbers maybe. Numbers, and what else? What's the other one? Keynote. Thank you. Keynote. Charlie's a bum, so he didn't work on anything. So he has empty, and Dan didn't work on anything. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's see if that works. Let's try it locally. Let's try it locally. If we reload, oops. Oh, let me start the server. Node server. If we refresh, if we look at the traffic on the network, right, and we refresh, if you'll notice, when it asks for all the developers, where is that? Here it is, right? That's when it asks for all the developers. Look what's coming. Right? Notice that we have definitely the array of all the developers, but embedded in there, not only do we have first name, last name, whatnot, right? We also have the apps right there, embedded. You see that? The data has been embedded. So what we could do is that when we click on an edit, right, or maybe a button that shows information about the user plus their applications, there's kind of like a one-to-many, right, where one developer is associated to many applications, right? It's like a parent-child relationship between the two, as opposed to a many-to-many where you might have one developer being associated. Many developers associated to many applications, right? So that would be different, right? Let's commit that for now, right? What do we have? Git status, git commit, added apps to developers. What else do we want to do? We want to now render, right? As we choose a particular developer. Where is it? Let's see. Let's create another button here. Right? Let's create another button with a pencil that allows us to grab, right, or select. How about select? And it's not going to be danger. It's going to be maybe a warning, and then it's going to be a pencil, right, so you can select it. Let's run the server. Let's see how that renders. Okay, with the pencil. And when we select it, what we want to do, right, is store. First grab a hold of the fact that you selected it. Let's notify select. Let's notify the controller and say that the following has been selected function, right, and the index. So let's store it in selected index, the index. Okay. And what we want to do is maybe say, all right, let's display the applications for that user, right, if they have any, right? So what we're going to do is send. We're going to send the applications to the UI. Where are the applications? Where are the applications? They are in the developers, right? The developers is the array that contains all the developers. Yes, right. Which developer am I selecting? It's the one by the index, right? And in there we have the applications, right? We have the applications under there. I'm sending it to the UI, And now the UI can render it. All right, let's have the UI render it. All right, we can say render applications. All right, let's try that. If I select this one, oops, something went wrong. What happened? Did I refresh? Maybe I didn't refresh. Why aren't you working? Inspect, console, any errors? No, no errors. Let me think through this. Applications, okay. Scope select. It's this button, right? It's tied, right? Select index. Select and the index. Okay. Scope applications. Scope developers sub-index dot applications. Well, let's make sure that it's let's debug this. Let's go to sources. Let's go to app.js. App.js. There it is. And let's step through it. Okay, where's our event handler? There it is. I'm going to put a breakpoint there. And I'm going to select. Okay, so so they're tied, right? I click on it. It goes into my event handler. Let me look at index. Index is 0. That makes sense. Let me step one more. And scope. Here's developers. There we go. Sub-0. And oh, it's apps. It's not applications. Urgh. I hate computers. Okay, so it's apps, right? Apps. That's what the sub object is named. Let's try that again. I click here. There they are, right? Those are the applications for that user, and those are the applications for that other user. Yes? Okay. So what we're going to do here, we're going to say, all right, we're going to render it. Instead of doing this ugly thing, we're going to use maybe a UL, right? And under here, LI, I'm going to say, no, I don't like ULs. Well, okay, fine. LI, we're going to do ng repeat. We're going to repeat the app in applications. Yes? And we're going to put here the name, app.name. Right? So let's try that again. If I click, there they are, right? And this one doesn't have any. Okay? What we might want to do, ooh, we're over time. No, do we have till 4:30 or 4:25? 4:30. Okay, a couple more minutes. What I might want to do here is put a title here, maybe H2 applications, right? So that if I click on it, I'm showing it. But this application should be if there are no applications, the applications perhaps shouldn't show, right? So what we might want to do is put this whole thing inside of a div, right, and only show it. I only this ng show. I only show it if applications, right? Applications.length. Well, actually, maybe that will just work. Let me see. Yeah, there it is. If there is applications, then it renders. Okay, this one's still showing it, right? So maybe it should be if applications.length, right? .length. Let's reload. Let's see. There we go. It doesn't show. If I say just applications.length is saying, you know, is length null or undefined or 0 or false, right? In any of those cases, it's false, right? And it doesn't show. So this checks to see if it's not null, it's not empty, it's not undefined, it's not 0, it's not false, it's not empty string, and then it renders. Okay, that makes sense. All right, let's leave it here. Thank you.